What's up, everybody, and welcome to the final 5280 of 2024 right here on the MHRT Network. It's been a minute since I've been here, so I'm still trying to remember how to do everything. But I am your host, as always, Benungus Creevy, joined by my co-host, Cameron Parker-Poo, and Unicorn Penis Glenn Hauser. How's everybody doing?
I'm here for the Gage Madrid birthday extravaganza, and he goes and ditches us for a free meal.
Sorry,
for brisket. We have to be precise for brisket.
I would ditch you all for biscuit too. I'm pretty sure.
For biscuit?
Listen. I have a speech impediment. Leave me alone.
Mike would ditch us for a handful of croutons.
I was gonna say he would ditch.
I'd ditch you for a Hershey's Kiss.
Yeah, I was gonna say he would ditch us for food all the time.
Like someone throws me a Reese's Pieces bag, I quit forever.
He's like E.T.
So
except Mike does not try to phone home. That's for sure.
All right, Bill, try to figure out your emojis there, sir. Finger red number 1. So we have a lot to catch up on. Not only do we have a lot of Broncos stuff to talk about, but we got a lot of NFL stuff to talk about because we have the final game of the season coming up this weekend, and we have a couple divisions and a couple playoff spots that are going to be decided this weekend. Mm-hmm. Now it sounds like, and we'll get back into this a little bit more, but it sounds like when the Broncos play the Chiefs are going to be sitting some starters, namely Mahomes. That one's already been confirmed. He is not playing.
Yeah. It seems like it's actually trending in the area where it isn't just Mahomes. It sounds like they're going to be resting a fair amount of starters, if you will, heading into this game. And actually, probably the best way to explain this from a resting side of things, I think it's safe to say that things are trending in the direction where Kansas City will probably treat it like a preseason game, for their players. Meaning they might actually play in the first quarter, but by the end of the fourth quarter, it's going to look like a completely different unit. I tie a bow on all of that to basically say the Chiefs are handing the Broncos a gift.
I hope so. Now, I'm assuming with Mahomes out, and again, the list isn't finalized yet, but I'm going to assume we're talking Travis Kelce. We know Pacheco's already out. Chris Jones, I'm assuming, is going out. Karl Loftus, I'm guessing, is probably out. I don't know about receivers. Xavier Worthy, Brown.
One thing I would
can't imagine Brown's out.
Yeah, that's what I was good. Hollywood Brown would be one where I would venture to guess he's going to be in. Hopkins is an interesting one because he's a vet. Worthy is also interesting because he's such a young player, and he might need that type of game before he goes into the playoffs. And he's also getting red hot at the right time. So. But I feel like the one that is probably most certain of that wide receiver group is Hollywood Brown that'll probably play.
Oh. So if Mahomes is not playing, is that called Operation Resting Bitch Face? No, I'm just kidding.
Probably. Now, do we know if it's going to be
well, Mike, let me just make this point. So Schefter was on with McAfee yesterday, and he's like, a lot of gets made about these players that are sitting, but it's generally 5 or 6 guys at the most. So you're still playing the majority of the starters. Granted, we're not playing the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Surefire Hall of Famer. Okay, surefire Hall of Famer, but that's fine.
One, yes, best in the NFL.
But my point is you're still playing a lot of guys. We cannot go into this game thinking it's going to be a slam dunk and that it's just going to be an automatic.
Mm-hmm.
No, I completely agree, and I think we sit here and we're like, yeah, the last time the Broncos and the Chiefs played, Broncos had it. We're definitely going to take this one, but the Broncos defense has not been the same over these last 4 weeks. Like, and I see a lot of people complaining about Vance Joseph and they should fire Vance Joseph. No, I don't think this is not a Vance Joseph problem. We're starting to see the ceiling of talent that's on the defensive side of the ball in certain spots that are important. Like when you look at inside linebacker, you're starting to see that, hey, Sternad is not Singleton. Like we need Singleton back. Like you're also seeing the limits of Cody Barton. But I think a lot of that is because he's making up for things that Sternad is missing. But we're also starting to see like PJ Locke is starting to fall off a little bit. You're also starting to see that the cornerback rotation behind Surtain is not as strong as we initially thought it was throughout the season because we're starting to see some struggles. Riley Moss, I'm not really worried about. He just came back from being out for 2-3 weeks. Like, I get it. And he allowed a couple touchdowns, but yardage-wise, it wasn't a bad game.
But but also you have to go with the sense of like he's still recovering from an MCL injury. So like he's it's one where to me it was a disappointing game, but you also have to give him some grace there. But I do agree. But I think that still, unfortunately, if players don't execute, it falls on the the defensive coordinator or the coaches. So I would hope that the coaches take some, responsibility there. But I mean, I'm with you. I think that you are starting to see a little bit of some weaknesses kind of creep in just a little bit, particularly from that linebacker position. I think if you're really looking at one of the biggest reasons why things have been a little bit rough these last couple weeks is because of that linebacker spot and the coverage of the tight end. And then the safety position kind of here and there, with PJ Locke and maybe some others. So I just think that overall they're unfortunately hitting a bit of a rough patch right now when they really, should never have, if you will, hit a rough patch. But I think that also too, when you look at the teams that they played, they also ran into, they were going to be running into some really, tough quarterbacks down that stretch because you hit Justin Herbert. Regardless of the fact that he's hurt, he still plays at a very high level, right? Then you go out and you basically are playing a buzzsaw Cincinnati Bengals team in Cincinnati, and arguably the most valuable player in the entire National Football League take record away in Joe Burrow. Like it was a very rough game going in to that Bengals game, given every sort of situation.
Yeah. And for me, Riley Moss did not seem like the same guy, excuse me, after he took that hit to the head early on. I think it was a knee, and something just seemed off from then out. And I'm not entirely sure he wasn't seeing stars for a little bit of that game. But, we talk about the linebacker, inside linebacker being an issue right now, and it really has shown to be a glaring need moving forward towards next year. But doesn't it seem like now might be a nice time to give Drew Sanders some reps at inside linebacker? And with his speed, his ability to cover this field, he could be covering some of these tight ends, and we wouldn't miss a beat.
It depends on what their level of confidence is, right? And we've seen numerous times where whether it's been the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, the coaching staff will say, yeah, we'll give X player a bump in snaps. Well, that bump in snaps maybe go from 6 to 7, but it's not going to go from 6 to 30 in terms of snaps. So so it depends on probably their comfort level with Drew Sanders. And you also have to factor in he's still maybe recovering a little bit, from IR. But by that same token, you also activated him off of IR. So at least you would think that they feel a bit more comfortable enough so that he can take on a much larger role. So I'm okay with it. But my only problem with that is this is now a very do or die type situation going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, regardless of who's out there. So I hate to say it, but I feel like you almost have to roll with the unit that you basically have been going for with these last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
and maybe throw in Sanders here and there, and like you did.
We got to change something. I mean, we're averaging in these last handful of games almost double what we'd been giving up, through the first 12 games. So that's a significant thing. So we do need to, I do think, like, not overturn the cart completely, but do readjust some of the things on the cart. And I would like to see him get a couple opportunities in there. I mean, look what happened when Riley Moss started getting some opportunities earlier on this year. All of a sudden you realize, holy crap, this guy.
Chris Abrams train.
He's great. Where was he in the game the other night?
Yeah, he had a couple snaps. But
yeah, and they kept putting Mathis in there too. And like, I don't hate the guy, but Abrams train is definitely better than Mathis.
The one area where I will say that it might end up being a Vance Joseph problem, what's going on with his blitz packages? Because the blitz packages are non-existent right now. It almost feels like he's been showing his hand in the first half, and then everything basically is broken into that second half, to where you're seeing a lot of soft zone, not a lot of creative blitzes happening. I mean, obviously I know that there's been some plays here and there that are creative, but the one that, really is, and funny enough, we were just talking about him, but the one creative play was, Drew Sanders literally blitzing up the middle to get Justin Herbert on a pretty critical drive there on the Thursday Night Football game. But it's like, we have to get more creative and create a lot of pressure. Where were those safety blitzes that we've been seeing the last handful of this, or the first midway point of this season? You know what I mean? Like, where's the PJ Locke blitzes? Where the Brandon Jones blitzes? Those corner blitzes? So he's got to be a little bit more creative, and because the more you don't blitz, the more you're basically sitting on your hands and telling whoever quarterback is there, and it's going to be in Carson Wentz, like, say, please pick us apart, please, by all means.
Well, and like in this last game against the Bengals, I don't feel like the blitzing was that big of a problem because we had 7 sacks on Joe Burrow. Like, we were getting pressure to him, and I feel like when he
plus moved, 2, Mike, that were taken away from penalties. I mean, we were all over.
And I feel like Joseph is trying to move at certain points of the game to zone to cover the weakness in the middle of the defense.
Yeah.
And it's just, even when you go to zone, there's only so much you can do before it's like, well, you can sit here and complain that this is the problem, but at some point there's just nothing you can do. Like, it's not like you can take Sternot out and put somebody else in aside from Drew Sanders, because we don't know what he's going to look like.
Yeah.
But you can't just take Sternot out, put a 4th stringer in there, and think it's going to be better. Like, there's only so many things you can do.
Yeah.
No, and one thing too is our offense has shown a propensity to be able to stay in these games and go toe to toe with some of these offensive powerhouses, with the exception of the Ravens game that got away from us, at the end of the first half. But so I feel like we can take, Joe Burrow is that good. I feel like we can take some chances on the defensive side, and if we get burned, we get burned, because we have a really good opportunity that when we get the ball back, we can put some points on the board.
Well, and sorry, Cam, and that was one thing that I kind of wanted to, still talk about the defense, but also give praise where it's due. Like, we started this season very concerned about tight end, wide receiver, and the offense.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bengals literally have one of the best offenses, at least talent-wise, like on their roster. And we hung with their offense. Like, we should have won that game.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why when I'm describing what I did earlier, it was about the course of the the last handful of games. I'm actually giving the benefit of the doubt with that Bengals game, because they, as I mentioned, they went into a buzzsaw. Like, Joe Burrow, the way he was playing going into that game was truly at that MVP type peak level that, frankly, did he get in, he should win MVP, type of stuff. And so, there's nothing you can, I mean, you can get 7 sacks on him, you can pressure him, you can get to him, but the guy is an absolute machine. He's going to end up making plays. He's going to end up giving it to T. Higgins. He's going to end up realizing that, Riley Moss, he's coming away from injury. He's still probably a very good corner, But the smart mind of a quarterback is always going to be, trying his best to eliminate weaknesses or find the best weaknesses on a football team. And he did exactly that. And he should have done exactly that.
Right. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Like when you look at the Chiefs, right? We were all so concerned because they were getting all these wide receivers. It's not that I'm terrified of the wide receiver. It's that you're giving Mahomes more options. And it's the same thing with Burrow, right? Like I'm not terrified of T. Higgins by himself. But when you have Jamar Chase, when you have T. Higgins, when you have Joe Burrow, when you have Mike Gesicki, like that can just overload the defense.
Chase Brown's like a wide receiver from the backfield.
Yeah, there's only so many things you could do before it's like, all right. Now, there is one person that I am upset with over two specific things. One, why don't you go for the 2-point conversion? Two, what was the offensive play calling in overtime on offense? Like I don't understand why Sean Payton did not go for the 2 and then defended not going for the 2. And I don't understand what in God's name you're doing in overtime on offense. I don't get it.
It's bad when even the quarterback wanted to go for 2, by the way.
Right?
Yeah, it's like me an hour after eating Taco Bell. I'm going for 2.
That's right. And then, and then you go to the bathroom and it turns out you have to go number 1.
Right? And like, it's messed up.
And how do you not go for 2? I just don't. I mean, and his rationale was we had the momentum. Exactly. I don't care that there was some sort of a lapse where they were reviewing the play. That is when you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we would have gotten that conversion. I just in my heart. Right. And I know people have said, well, then the fans would be like, if we didn't get it, they'd be all pissed that we did go for it. I honestly don't believe that. I would rather
go for it and miss.
I don't believe that the fans would be upset with. I think they would like the opportunity to have taken that win, knowing that offense was coming back on the field and was picking us apart. I mean, it just is. It's so frustrating, especially the explanation. Just say, you know what, I fucked up.
Right, and again, and this is where Sean Payton needs to grow. Payton, you talk about P, and now that's got P in my brain. You see about Sean Payton, like we know that Sean Payton has changed the culture in Denver, and we're going to have a winning culture. Offense has changed, the defense has changed, coach has changed, everything changed, and we're going up, right? But at some point, you have to just, if you mess something up, just be like, it was my fault. I apologize. I messed up. Instead of like, no, that was the right call. I didn't want to go for 2. Blah, 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 blah.
But I think that over the course of the season, if we're going to call it for what it is, over the course of the season, we have seen that there's just unfortunate situations where he needs to do a little bit more of it. You know what I mean? He needs to do a little bit more of it. Now, by the way, to David's comment, to be fair, if Denver did tie, they would be in the playoffs right now. But just to be fair, I mean, I'm not trying to say that they should not have gone, for 2.
Okay, Cam, but let me stop you for 1 second. If we were really concerned about the tie, we never would have thrown it on 3rd down. We would have then drained the clock all the way to the 2-minute warning. And Riley Dixon was terrible, by the way, in this game.
Very bad.
But I think he made a decision. It didn't turn out to be the right decision. And he has this ego that doesn't allow him to admit a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to pose yourself as a nut dragger, you got to drag your nuts every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, go for 2.
Everybody should go.
Go for 2. Anyway, go. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, but again, like I just think that there's just those moments where you want him to be 100% truthful, in the sense of there are a lot of moments where he's certainly owned up to it, but like in key moments like this where you really should have owned up to the fact that about going for 2, it's like we needed to see that, like give us your famous line. Give us your famous line that we've always heard so far this year, which was, in terms of coaching, how to be better. That's on me. Right. Say that as it correlates to the 2-point conversion. So I'm just saying, like, he can't pick and choose, like,
Right.
okay, like, over this course, I'm just exaggerating. Over the course of like this stretch of games, that's when I'll be, accurate. Again, I'm exaggerating. And then this particular moment when we needed it the most, I'm just kind of like, give a little bit more of an analytical answer. No, you have to be truthful in everything that you do. And unfortunately, it backfired.
Or give a good reason for
Yeah.
not doing it. The momentum thing just was baffling to me. And I don't know about you guys, so Lutz kicks the extra point. Next thing I know, I'm looking at the Jake Browning, the backup quarterback, and Will Lutz standing there basically just for the coin flip, deciding what's going to happen next. Cincinnati wins that flip, and I'm like, this is very bad. Like, why would you let something, especially when we have the opportunity, as Mike Golden puts in the comments, to still make the playoffs by winning this weekend. We still control our own destiny. So why not take that opportunity in game 2 of 3 rather than almost ensuring that it has to go to 3 of 3 and then seeing what plays out that day? I just
the other unfortunate thing that actually backfires, unfortunately, in favor of Sean due to the 2-point conversion. How'd you start the game, Sean? You took the ball. So why not at the very end of the game do your 2-point conversion? So why not just finish this off, do exactly what it was that you did at the very beginning, be aggressive. And I get the whole course of the game changes, game plans and everything, but like given everything in the moment that it was, take that 2-point conversion. 50% of the time it works. That's far more of a success rate than anything less than that. And given the momentum and everything we talked about, you arguably could have won that game. Specifically with the momentum, specifically with the way that your supposed franchise quarterback was playing in the fourth quarter. He was dialed. I mean, he was playing at, if that's his ceiling, if that is his ceiling, and he's going toe to toe with Joe Burrow, probably the MVP, as we were saying, then sign me up for everything like that. And so take advantage of all of that. Take advantage of that, and give it to your hot hand. And unfortunately, Sean didn't do that. And now, unfortunately, we're kind of playing good cop, bad cop in the course of Sean Payton, and all the comments on social media of like Sean Payton needs to be fired and stuff.
Oh my God. The guy still has, in my opinion, an A-, B+ coaching season.
I mean, we could have had Dan Quinn.
Shut up.
Honest, you think Dan Quinn has anything to do with what's happening there? We could have had Kevin O'Connell. Okay. But anyway, I mean, did you see the video of him standing off to the side watching those guys throwing up Sam Darnold? I mean, you could just see he was like a proud dad. It was like it was so cool. But listen, Sean Payton has been he along with a number of factors have really changed the trajectory of this organization. So what we can appreciate and respect and love what he's been doing, we're also allowed to think that this was like a massive bad decision.
Yeah.
And I just hope at 7:30, it would be 5:30 Mountain Time on Sunday, that
we're popping.
We're popping champagne, and no one's going to be talking about the 2-point conversion, because that is definitely going to come back in the topic of conversation if, in fact, we lose this game on Sunday.
So we go from the 2-point conversion, right? Like Denver has all the momentum. Mims just made that incredible catch. Bo made that incredible throw to get the touchdown at the end of the game. We don't go for 2. We have all the momentum. Mm-hmm. After that 2-point conversion doesn't happen, momentum is gone. Then the Bengals win the coin toss and drive it down the field. They go to kick it. Doink. They miss. We got momentum again. We get the ball. Why are we dumping it off? Why are we running screens? You have McLaughlin, who's averaging 8 yards a carry. Give him the ball.
Yeah. Or
like just bombed it all down the field for the entire fourth quarter. Throw the ball.
Just be aggressive. And, and obviously, things necessarily weren't all that great in terms of the quarterback situation in the beginning or the first half of the game, where the execution certainly could have been better. But like, I think that overtime specifically here is the one example where, I don't understand why people actually feel like Bo Nix played a really bad game. I'm going to be blunt. I don't understand why people feel like Bo Nix actually played a really terrible game, or that he is solely to blame, or one of the sole.
Probably because they want Drew Lock back because of his amazing performance.
But like that overtime is a
losing the first pick.
But but specifically that overtime is a prime example of why Bo Nix, in my opinion, wasn't necessarily to blame, because it was the play calls. You can't be setting up your entire offense to fail with screens or something like that. You're supposed to be setting them up for success, like play action, like getting Bo to roll out, or if you're so pass heavy, making him feel comfortable a little bit, not getting him in shotgun, or doing these types of screen plays, and making it so that you're setting yourself up in like second long, third longs, not winning first down. Like it's not a successful overtime, and everything that you've done so far this season, it appears, has been helping out your young quarterback. What changed, man? Like what absolutely changed?
Right, and we've been running screens and dump-offs the entire game. At some point when the defense locks down, which they did, they're not going to let that happen. Why are you sticking with it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also these passes downfield to Troy Franklin, I think they just need to stop, at least for the time being. He's decent in a certain range, but where he needs to be adjusting for the ball, he could have continued running. That was a catchable pass that he slowed down on. And then earlier in the season, he's had 2 bomb touchdowns that went right through his hands in the end zone. Like something's not clicking as far as that connection goes. And so for that to be the case on the third down play, and had that catch happened, I mean, that would have locked up the game. It would have been over. But just that connection is just, it's weird, because that was all we were hearing, is just how solid it was in college last year. And it just doesn't, I feel like there's got to be better options as far as throwing the ball than to Troy Franklin down the field now.
Yeah. So if there's anything else you want to say about the game, be my guest, throw it out there. If not, then we'll kind of go into playoff scenarios, NFL stuff, things like that. Because
if you want to relive the pain, Mike said that it's on NFL Network right now, actually.
Yeah, that's why I'm not watching it.
Unfortunately, you can't fast forward to the fourth quarter, though.
What I will say about this game is, and I even said it to the family as I was losing my mind in the family room, is really, when was the last time you can remember feeling that churning in your gut, getting to the point where you need to move around, like you're yelling at the screen, you're jumping up and down after, like the bomb to Mims or that last second touchdown. It felt incredible to be locked into those moments. And what's really neat is, I'm on the East Coast, you guys are, Mike's in the middle of the country, Cam's in Colorado, and we're all doing the same thing. We're all feeling the same way and sharing that moment together. And we haven't had that very often in the last few years, and it feels really, really good for us to be sitting there when something matters. And Sunday should feel the same way, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, it's definitely a different feeling than that Miami game last year. So I'd rather have this feeling.
But, I will say this, and this is another really, really good perspective check. So for me, at least, when we were going into this season, at least from my standpoint, I had their floor at 7-10. If they, and this is probably a good transition before we even get to the playoffs here. The playoff conversation, if you will. My floor was 7-10. I think Glenn's floor was probably, 10-7, given the fact that, he had to go 12-5.
Which could have happened up until 2 weeks ago.
which could have happened.
It was feasible. It was reachable.
But I just think that, when you look overall at this season, it has been nothing but growth, overall in this season, and specifically from that one area where we really wanted that type of growth or that answer. And at this particular point, until the final regular season game, I think we can all agree it is trending in a very good direction right now with a quarterback that appears to be your franchise quarterback. And so to say it has been a successful season to this point, I think is a yes. But you just also have to finish the job to where let's get that cherry on top. You're there, basically. You just got to basically cross that finish line. It's like the end of Cool Runnings. They were knocked down. Get back up and walk past that finish line, and you'll feel like
spoiler alert for if you haven't seen Cool Runnings in the last 30 years.
Right. So
whoops. But yeah, so right before we head into other topics, I do want to bring up that there have been some updates on the network because I was able to focus on some things to get some things done. So you are definitely not required to, but if you would like to support the network in any way on any show, super chats and super stickers are now available. If you would like to donate some of your finances, mostly your time, to the network and the things that we talk about and all that, well, I mean, it is. You are more than welcome to, not required to, but we would love it. That is an option if you would like to use it. We also have the merchandise store connected to our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to check out our merch, you can go ahead and do that as well.
If you've ever said, I want to dress like those guys.
Yeah, I want to dress like the fat guy at the top left.
There's a place for that.
Preferably the one on the bottom, though.
I mean, if you want to be on the bottom. But all you really need to do is hit that like button, the subscribe button. That is good enough for us. We really appreciate it. We love having everybody in the chat. Hi, Emma! I'm sure my daughter just went, hi, Daddy. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there while we were in the show. But we talked about the Broncos. We talked about the Bengals game. We talked a little bit about the Chiefs game. Not much to update on until we know who's in and who's out. As of now, we know that Mahomes isn't in. I can almost guarantee that Kelsey's not playing.
No, it can't be.
So we can talk about that right before the show ends. But we do have some playoff things we need to talk about. Number one, where the Broncos stand. So same as it was the last 2 weeks, win and you're in. Now, at this point, if the Broncos lose and the Bengals win, the Broncos fall out, Bengals go in. Now, if the Broncos lose and the Bengals lose and Miami wins, then Miami's in. So the only way to secure a spot easily is for the Broncos to win this game.
Or
right.
Or that, and if the Bengals lose, right,
it's not gonna.
They're going into a much tougher situation than this Broncos game, in my opinion.
No, but all three teams are not going to lose where we slide in. I mean, I do think. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
but I no, you're good. I just think they're going into a bit of a much more tougher situation than this Bronco game, because that Cincinnati game is not in Cincinnati. It's not in Cincinnati. It's in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and Pittsburgh's actually got something to play for. So they want to make sure they cinch up that division. Because if they're not, then what? They're the 5th seed, and then the Ravens are the what is it? The 4th seed or whatever, right?
Oh,
the Ravens are the 4th seed.
The Ravens.
No, I think whoever gets in is this is going to be This is. I think the only thought is that whoever gets in of those three teams you just named is going to be the 7th seed.
The sacrificial lamb to the Bills.
Like I said, unless it gets truly chaotic and all teams lose, then the Broncos are in.
Yeah. So I did want to talk about this one a little bit. Will you guys have confidence knowing that we had to beat the Chiefs bench to make it to the playoffs? So yes. Obviously you guys know that Bill calls me all the time about everything. So I've already had this conversation with Bill because Bill's like, I don't want to just back into the playoffs. And this is what I told him.
Bill calls you and he's like, Tom Selleck wants me to do a reverse mortgage. What do you think I should do?
Yeah, no. You have to remember that over the last 8 seasons, we have not had a winning season. We have not made the playoffs. Nothing. The Justin Simmons was the longest tenured person on the team before this year, and he had never even sniffed the playoffs, right? So it's not about going into the playoffs with momentum. It's about getting into the playoffs.
Just simply.
Because you want to set that culture of, hey, this is how well you need to play just to get here. Like, this is the benchmark, and that's what we need. So I don't care if they limp in or they get in by a bunch of people losing. I don't care. I just want the Broncos to make the playoffs so that going forward, players know the standard of what they have to do at a minimum just to make the playoffs.
And so much goes into it too. I look at it a couple different ways as well. Every team has gotten some break through or breaks throughout the course of the season that's helped them move the needle for them. Also, the Broncos should have beaten the Chiefs in Arrowhead against their full complement of players, and a freak blocked field goal ended that for us. So we have shown that it doesn't matter if their full team is playing. We took it to the end there. It was just a weird play that just, there's your break for the Chiefs, at least, one of the many that they've received. And so, but let me just finish, Campbell. To Mike's point is, when you're trying to get these guys and you're changing the culture and you're trying to make it into a winning culture, it also will. Garrett Bowles has never played in the playoffs, and he's 2017. The preparation for the playoffs is different. It's an extra week. Now we're traveling to Buffalo. Is it going to be a blizzard? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? We're playing this extra game. Guess what? They're losing, they're out. We're losing, we're out. Like it's a whole different ball game. And even if we lose in the first round of the playoffs, the fact that we got there unexpectedly with a rookie quarterback, $80-something million in dead cap. What is next year going to be like?
That's right.
What is next year going to be like for recruiting other players to come and play for this team, and just these other young guys having the experience of playing in the postseason? It's invaluable for us to win this game.
Fernando with the $5 super chat. Holy crap! Thank you. Will you forgive Wilson if he beats the Bengals this week? Absolutely not. I have a friend that I was talking to today and a coworker who is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And all of the crap that we were hearing about Russell Wilson and how he is in the facility and what his teammates think about him is the same thing they're hearing in Pittsburgh. Like, teammates don't like him. Coaches don't like him. He's an awful person. Screw him. So, no, I will never forgive him.
He's not an awful person. I mean, that's far from it.
Clickbait.
That's where I'm taking it.
But, and you might catch me say, let's ride once during the Steelers and Bengals game. But, as we're kind of continuing the conversation about the playoffs, I think a really good example of this, is college football. When you look at teams and, they're trying to get back to the bowl season, like that matters so much, because obviously, the NFL playoffs is not, the grand season of a whole, like that. But like, you get an extra week of practice, something that those other teams don't have that luxury of doing. So to kind of carry on what you guys are saying, it's like, so now you go into the playoffs, I'm not expecting you to win, but just getting in and having that extra week of practice, that extra week of preparation, that alone is going to be carrying you into next season for that type of confidence, for the type of confidence that you'll have in Bo Nix, that offense, everybody else. So when you have that going, forward, it will be that standard to what, Mike was talking about earlier. So it's just like, it just reinforces everything so that, that going forward, this will be your standard. Mike, and you could even use the Steelers, not saying he should, but like, you could use the Steelers as an example, saying, you see that guy over there in Pittsburgh, he refuses to have a losing season. That will not happen here. And, and so it should be the
He's not talking about Russ. He has lots of losing seasons.
But no, he
that's not even true. That's like,
So Sean Payton should absolutely be looking at this team and saying, going forward, this will be that standard.
Yeah.
I mean, and with a single elimination, literally anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. What if Josh Allen gets hurt in the first quarter?
Right.
Mitchell Trubisky strolls in. I mean, that becomes a very much more winnable ball game at that point. I just think that it would just be so much fun. You know, we'll get over this season if we end up 9-8, 10-7 with a playoff berth, 9-8 without one. You know, I guess we can live with that. But it just seems when you have it in your hands, it would just be so much fun to just continue this ride.
Yeah. So let's break down the playoffs as they stand right now. So as of right now, if the playoffs were to start, the Chiefs get a first-round bye. The Bills would play the Broncos in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. The Ravens would play the Chargers in Baltimore, and the Texans would play the Steelers in Houston. And that's how the AFC would break down right now. I think, in my opinion, you're looking at 2, 3, and 4, like the Bills, Ravens, and Texans winning those games.
I don't know. The Texans.
I mean, unless you got like a Demaryius Thomas, Tim Tebow connection at the end of the game against the Bills, and we pull it out. But I'm just saying.
No, I'm talking about from a Texans standpoint. I don't think they're that strong right now going into these playoffs. I mean, I think the Steelers could definitely take them.
Yeah, they can. I'm in total agreement with Glenn.
So who do you got for – and I don't want to break down the entire playoff run, but who, as of right now, who would you have for the AFC as Super Bowl favorite?
Baltimore.
I think Buffalo, actually.
See, I was leaning Buffalo too.
Yeah. You know, one of the things too is and I know the Chiefs are pros. They've won 3 Super Bowls in the last few seasons. So I mean, they're phenomenal. But to rest your main starters 2 consecutive weeks, that's a lot of time where they've been playing hard football and been consistent to now not doing anything aside from practicing. I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised that they're not playing them for a little bit this weekend and then giving them the full week the following week off. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I can't imagine that it's not going to affect them in some way.
Yeah, and to play devil's advocate a little bit from the Chiefs side of things, I almost feel like sitting them a little bit would benefit it. You know, specifically when you look at the type of season that they had, where it's been fraudulent. I'm calling it exactly what it is. It's been a very fraudulent year. You know, you allow them to rest, the team to rest, specifically your starting quarterback, which is everything your offense hinges on. You know, and you go out and 2 weeks later, you know, you get a chance to, you know, knock your opponent after a first round bye. So I'm not trying to say that, you know, hey, play, you know, Patrick Mahomes against the Denver Broncos. It's just like, you know, I
do it his offensive line.
Yeah. I will say, I do think just going quickly back to, I do think that from an incentive standpoint, because they had that game in Kansas City and that way they did, and the last couple games of Thursday night in Cincinnati, I think the Broncos do come out with a much stronger sense of urgency in this Kansas City game, just simply from the standpoint of just even looking at that Kansas City Chiefs game, specifically how that ended.
It's always just holding people hostage. Get on the podcast.
Zoe, get her to subscribe, okay? It's not just about watching.
Like and subscribe.
Like, subscribe, and share. Come on now.
And the good news is it doesn't cost money.
Well, if it costs them money, if it costs Zoe money, she's coming over here. So,
well, that's the thing, though, right? Like, completely off topic, but like, you can set up memberships on YouTube, right? And they're like, okay, if you're gonna set up memberships, set up different levels, and then tell them what they're gonna win. What do I put? Like, you get to hang out with me for an hour? That's not an advantage. Like, why is that a gift? Right. Why would somebody pay for that when you can just do it for free? So
thank you, Callie.
It's going to be a thing. Like, we're not turning this into an OnlyFans on YouTube. Okay, like, that's not going to be a thing. Why does it fly the face? Why the face?
No, just because I was thinking there are kids in the chat.
It's fine. I didn't say any cuss words. It's all right. Okay, so we go into this last game against the Chiefs with the playoffs on the line, but we also have other teams that are fighting for number one draft picks. Mm-hmm. We have teams that have general managers and front offices and coaches that completely suck. One of those teams specifically got into a little bit of hot water with Pat McAfee, and they were just recently eliminated from the playoffs because they allowed Drew Lock to score 45 points on them. And we obviously are talking about the Indianapolis Colts. I don't even know what to do with that franchise. Like, you need a new quarterback, you need wide receivers, you need a new coach, you need a new general manager. Like, you need a lot.
They physically and figuratively have dropped the ball. I mean,
like Richardson keeps winning.
Yeah, I mean, so I just think that the moment Jonathan Taylor dropped that ball before he crossed the line in that Denver Broncos game was the moment, when all hope was lost for playoff hopes. And maybe it had something to do with me ringing their alarm at 3 a.m. That's beside the point.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah.
God's work.
But, I just think that, they're a very interesting team moving forward. And I know we had our Anthony Richardson conversation, but it's just like they're just in a very weird place because I could very much see that Colts team looking at it and they just be like, we're hitting that reset button right now. Shane Steichen could be a surprise firing. I don't expect it, but like in terms of just an overall reset, I feel like if you do a hard reset, you've got to let go of the coach unless where they feel very content about moving on and everything. But Jonathan Taylor, how confident is he going forward, into next year? I know we joked about, physically dropping the ball against the Broncos, but I would love to see Jonathan Taylor actually be a Denver Broncos, a trade candidate.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So Michael Pittman, he signed a contract extension. I'm sure he's going to end up being there. So it's just like, and then they have some offensive line issues. They are a very interesting team going forward.
And the thing that I don't quite understand, and again, I'm not giving I'm not saying that the media can say whatever they want and get away with it, right? But like Pat McAfee was a lifelong Colt. His career was the Colts. He lives in Indiana. Mm-hmm. His podcast and all of his businesses are set up in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. Like, he is the biggest Colts fan around. He says something that is the truth when you're looking at it from the outside in, and then the Colts just circle their wagons and defend the team. It's like, well, at some point, you have to be like, okay, we need to look at some things and figure it out instead of going after Pat McAfee, because that's not the smart move.
Yeah.
But nothing he said was incorrect.
Wrong. Yeah.
And he was saying it in really a position of love. You know what I mean? Like, this is an organization important to him. He's not even renewing his season tickets. And if you've seen where he sits, he's got like one of those like field seats, suites that he, where they're right there off of the, field level. And because these guys have essentially tried to turn on him and blame him instead of maybe taking some of the things to heart. Like, we have to have higher expectations of what it's like to be a professional. And, we can't have a quarterback that thinks it's okay, not only to tap out, but then to admit that that's what was happening. I think that was the most shocking thing about it. He could have said, I felt a twinge in my anything.
Right.
But I was tired, and they were in the red zone. And, as this is happening to this organization, as the Raiders 2 weeks ago have the number one pick and then have won games in the meantime, and now they're sitting in like the 8th spot for the draft, that is a colossal screw up on so many levels, with the Giants doing the same type of thing. And this is how we know we've turned the corner as far as the Broncos go and as far as fans. is that we're looking at other organizations going, oh my God, thank God we're not anything like that.
Because we were just in it. So it's like, yes,
Right.
we don't have to talk about us.
Right. Well, and the Pat McAfee thing is like, it's no different. I mean, the only thing that's different is Pat McAfee has the platform that he does. This is no different, and Bronco fans know this. This is no different than Carl Mecklenburg going to, X and Twitter and voicing his opinion about the team, whether it's positive or negative. This is no different than that. Ed McCaffrey's been the same way. Rod Smith, same exact thing. They all voice their opinion on social media or X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. So this is no different than that. The only thing that's different is that Pat McAfee has just the very large platform that he does, and you don't see the Broncos PR team, going after them necessarily. But also, I think what also says is that like this also shows that being a PR person, and you can look at the White House press secretary, by the way, in the sense of how tough their job is. It goes to show you that being a press secretary running a PR team is literally probably one of the hardest things on the planet, trying to save face for an organization, specifically after something like that.
Yeah, that's why the Broncos
McAfee's
leaves us alone, because 5280, Pat McAfee, we're like right there.
Right.
Same
right.
viewership numbers, everything.
Like I put out a tweet the other day, it got like 250 likes. Pat McAfee got 10 million views into I got that many likes, and I was like, oh my gosh,
what am I supposed to do?
I'm so popular. Yeah.
Back and forth like this. It's right there.
You start singing Popular from Wicked.
I almost did. You're gonna be popular.
So then on the other side of that token, you have the New York Giants, who, based on the front office of the Giants, have found their new franchise quarterback in Drew Lock. Yep. They probably won't draft one. They'll just stick with Lock and see what he can do.
Maybe.
They'll go from 3 wins to 5 wins. It'll be fantastic. But like the Giants don't have anything either. Like Malik Neighbors finally had a good game, but other than Malik Neighbors and 4 guys on the defense, like what do they have?
Well,
and now they don't have the number 1 pick. But now they're like 6.
But see, here's the thing, and we need to put a little bit of some perspective on this, just a little bit. This is why the draft is such a crapshoot.
We're not continuing until Glenn does that.
No.
The show's over until Glenn does it.
Just like the Seinfeld picture, Glenn. This has got to happen.
Jazz, it doesn't happen for you.
But I just think that like when you look at this, just overall with the draft, it's just such a crapshoot. So I mean, like look at the Houston Texans, for example. Obviously, they're having a bit of a sophomore slump, but they won that game, right? They won that game. I forget who they were playing, but they won that game like the season before when Lovie Smith actually got fired. Right after that, and they ended up with the 2nd pick. A lot of people thought that they probably should end up with the 1st overall pick, and then they get Carolina basically get Bryce Young, and then they take CJ Stroud, and they get a bit aggressive, and they take Will Anderson as well. So it's such a crapshoot, and specifically in a class where this quarterback class is basically Shaduki. I mean, like it's just
Shaduki.
Yeah.
He has a great song, that Tipsy song. I love it.
But so it doesn't even matter if you have the 1st pick or the 2nd pick or the 3rd pick or the 4th pick, because this is such a crappy quarterback class. Like the Giants, because of where they're sitting, still very well might actually take Shedeur Sanders with their pick and everything, and or maybe even a Cam Ward. So regardless of how that season shaked out, you still
have to, wouldn't you? I mean, exactly. I don't think those guys last to 4th pick, quite honestly.
Really? The Patriots aren't going to take one unless they trade out of 1.
They're probably going to take Travis Hunter, is my guess.
So I'm assuming that you have Tennessee either trading up or taking, I'm guessing, Cam Ward at 2. And then who's 3?
The Giants are actually 3.
I thought they were at 6.
Yeah, let me just double check that.
Yeah, I mean, Titans might. I mean, the Titans.
I'm assuming the Titans are going to take Cam Ward. That would be my guess. And
Maybe.
then Well, the Raiders and Browns are before the Giants.
Just
No, not
let me
Raiders.
know.
Browns would be though. But
Brown-
the Browns are going to need a quarterback.
Well, they clearly
You're telling me Cleveland wouldn't take Shedeur Sanders?
but they've clearly done some really good massaging with Deshaun Watson's,
Good Lord.
with his cap space situation, and
So and I completely agree with you on the quarterbacks in this draft this year, though. Like if you look at Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, where would they have gone last year?
right.
And I don't think they would have gone in the first.
Penix was gonna go higher. Rattler's probably gonna be still going higher. I mean, yeah. So I mean, like,
And then there's the whole question of, well, what does Minnesota do with Sam Darnold? Right? Like, I don't think Sam Darnold plays out of his mind anywhere else but with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But they've got J.J. McCarthy coming back. So if Sam Darnold is now a free agent, do you go with the free agent quarterback or do you draft one?
right.
That is iffy.
I think they call the Las Vegas Raiders and they say, "What would you give us Max Crosby for J.J. McCarthy and a number 2, or J.J. McCarthy and a number 3," and see what they say.
But nonetheless, it's such a smart decision for Minnesota to lock that up with Sam Darnold, because actually the wild card of this mix actually for Darnold is San Francisco.
Yeah. Well, you were right. Giants are 4th.
Yeah.
Cleveland's 3rd.
I just don't know how you look at that locker room. Look at what he's done, with this team, with this talent. They waited for him. They did that whole lofting him up like he was like the Ayatollah Khomeini. And how do you then say in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, thanks, bro. Like, good luck to you. How do you explain that to the rest of the guys in that locker room that were just having those emotions?
But at the same time, like, he's on a 1-year contract. So if you sign him to a contract, he's going to want multiple years and it's going to be expensive.
That's why you trade J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, and that's why it's going to be so fascinating to see what they do based on, because even look at JJ's recovery, right? He actually might not even be ready to play and start in 2025 either. So the way that the contract should probably lay out logistically, if they believe in JJ, is, maybe you do a franchise tag, then you do the deal on top of that. You almost make it a transition tag to ensure yourself that if we need to trade him, we can trade him. But you do a franchise tag, then you attach his deal on there, maybe like a 3-year deal or something. So it's like a 4-year deal. And then you assure yourself the probability that maybe, financially that you can move off of his deal and, go forward with J.J. McCarthy. Because I think the other part that we should also stay here with JJ is he's also a very young quarterback still. He's a very young quarterback. So they might have some wiggle room where it could work in essence, like he could still be there. And then, but we've seen far more crazier things happen. I mean, not to go down our famous Russell Wilson rabbit hole, but Russell Wilson beat out, Matt Flynn in Seattle, after Flynn signed a massive deal with Seattle. So, J.J. McCarthy, after this, big, massive extension that they possibly could give Darnold, he could come out there and basically just be like, I'm the guy, and I'm going to show you how and why. And then he outplays Darnold, and, well, Minnesota's got himself a true quandary at that point.
Yeah, it's just a matter of them being able to convince Sam Darnold that they're going to sign him to a long-term deal and that they're going to honor the terms of that deal. Not just a monetary thing, but from a playing point, it's not a bad position for the Vikings to have.
Yeah.
But Sam Darnold has a hell of a lot of
it's certainly
leverage right now, because at worst he's going to get franchised for $40-something million.
Actually, if you're Sam Darnold, you're in a much better situation than the Vikings. You know what I mean? Because the Vikings are the one that has, they've got to make the hardest decision of all time right now.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I've said multiple times, I've talked crap about Shedeur Sanders in Colorado, but take that out of it, right? You look at Shedeur Sanders, And is Shedeur Sanders better than any potential free agent quarterback that's going to be on the market? I mean, there's potentially Justin Fields. He only had a 1 year. We don't know what the Steelers are going to do with Russell Wilson. You have, if the Titans move on from Will Levis, right? You also might have Kirk Cousins available from the Falcons because they're going to go with Penix. Like, there's a lot of potential options in free agency. There's also potential trades. Like, we don't know what Denver's going to do with Zach Wilson. He could be an option too. So is Shedeur Sanders at this point better than any of those free agents that a team might take a 1 year flyer on a bridge quarterback and then go to next year's draft?
Absolutely, he is. He's a much better option than any of those guys. We do, because with these other guys, we know. What's that?
Even with the BYU get.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And here's why.
He is like level-headed as possible. Like,
no, listen. There's a first time for everything, Mike. So that's good. Like Justin Fields, guy, he is what we think he is, right? I was shocked to find out that he has 6 rushing touchdowns this year, and he's not been playing. So is Shedeur a better option than Justin Fields? I think so. Kirk Cousins, with that kind of money and that kind of age and that injury history, what do you think with that? I think Shedeur is a much more attractive player than Kirk Cousins at this point. I think what's going to end up happening is that they're going to is that some of these other guys are going to end up falling to the Cam reference. There's not a huge number of – it's not like this year's draft where there were 6 quarterbacks going to be taken in the top 12. There's probably going to be 2 in the top 10. And these other quarterback-needy teams are going to need to find their solution somewhere else, and that's where they're going to end up getting is maybe settling for some of these other players.
Well,
sorry, the best part about this entire conversation, none of it has anything to do with Denver. We don't need a quarterback.
It is so good, dude.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
But no, and I was going to say, like, when you look overall with, just the draft process and with quarterback, we've seen far too varying different, situations unfold. I mean, like, a lot of people were, coming out of the woodwork, like, right around this particular point in time in the Kenny Pickett class, the Malik Willis class, the Will Levis class, right? And basically saying, oh, this actually isn't that bad of a class. Well, look what happened. Who was the only quarterback taken in the first round? It was Kenny Pickett. And look what happened to him. He's acting like, Barry Zito on the mound with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, like, and falling off the mound. So, I mean, it's just like things change. And so I would just be a bit cautious in the sense that, like, I actually like Shedeur Sanders as a prospect, but, because of what I like is going to be completely different from, maybe what Glenn likes or something like that. Or it's just, it could be different across the board. And even for teams, it could be completely different across the board. So, I assume, given with everything, Shedeur is, going to be pretty highly regarded. My thing that I really like about him is I do think he's a pretty surgical quarterback. I think that he struggles a bit at times with decision-making, but the biggest thing that he has got to, figure out at this next level is the sacks. You look at Caleb Williams with Chicago. He literally looks almost like a carbon copy of Russell Wilson right now in Chicago. Basically, all the sacks right now are solely responsible for him. Shedeur Sanders at times takes far too many just irresponsible sacks in very rough situations. That cannot happen at the next level.
And he's going to be going to a team that does not have a good offensive line.
We think at least.
Well, presumably. I mean,
if it's anywhere in the top 5, 6, not good offensive lines.
Do me a favor. Pull KB's comments on the bottom, Ken Booker, and then we'll go back to David's question because I think that's a very important point.
It won't let me do it.
Here, let me see if I. What's that? All right, exactly. It's one game. Generally averages
yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns.
Exactly.
Yeah, we know.
And you know what, Cam? You're right. The one thing that you can say about him is he does take a lot of, he does take the unnecessary sacks. One thing about him, though, is this guy is tough as nails. Last year, he was absolutely destroyed with a very, very crappy offensive line, and he never once tapped out. Like he just came back for more. He's a great leader. He's got the moxie. I think he's an awesome pro prospect. I think he's going to be. He and Cam Ward are both going to go. I'd expect in the top 5. I think there's going to be some movement up there. I know that there's talk up here in New England about the Patriots trading out of the number 1 spot and maybe getting a player or two or such. I mean, there was somebody was even speculating. Oh, who was it? Nick Wright was even speculating, or that they could trade Drake May. I mean, that was ridiculous. They're very happy with him, but I think that they're going to take Travis Hunter. I think that solves a couple different problems for New England. And I mean, what a better marquee player to have than him coming in here. Yeah. But these other quarterbacks are going to be drafted high and deservedly so, in my opinion.
So we're talking, sorry, Cam. So I want to get to this and then we'll continue.
You're fine.
So since we're talking about teams and draft and not really cap, but I guess it's included. Which players do you guys see the Broncos getting rid of to free up more money? I don't know if it's really a more money thing that we have to worry about, right? We still have $58 million in cap space.
Close to $60 million in cap space with the dead money and cash.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask this: cap aside, do you see any player not returning next year for
Javonte Williams is a definite no. I can't imagine he's back under any circumstances.
Okay. How about players that are currently under contract that doesn't expire next year?
I got one.
Players that are currently under contract that would be cut instead of just their contract runs out. Like Javonte, his contract is done after this year.
Right.
I got one. PJ Locke. I got one. Yeah, PJ Locke.
Whoa, dude, he signed for short money this year.
But when you look at Justin Simmons, right? Like, we were all upset that Justin Simmons left. And Glenn, you and I talked about this on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I love Justin Simmons, Brandon Jones crushed it this year, and PJ Locke is just he's just not it.
Yeah. And so again, like, to preface this in the comments, this is a player who is under contract that they can possibly move off of. Because I'm seeing, Sternad's a free agent out of, this year. So I just say PJ Locke because I just feel like there's too many times where he's out of position or or anything like that. And Stidham and by the way, Stidham and Zach Wilson are also free agents too. So I just think that they're just going to be really interesting cases, and Locke I think is just probably the most obvious. And I think my thing is almost more of, if you move on from PJ Locke, you also have to assure yourself what you're going to do in free agency. Now, I think the best way, it sounds pretty expensive, but I think the best way that you can do it, and it's quite a gamble, is you do everything that you did and subscribe to in this last off season, but you reunite, some of these players together. So if you release PJ Locke, you go absolutely hard and balls to the wall heavy on Javon Holland from Miami. Javon Holland has a lot of relationship with, Brandon Jones. You keep the stuff in.
Hello, Sanders.
You keep, that intact with the safety, room. And so, and again, obviously still stuff is a bit in the air, but who knows? We could be talking about a different defensive coordinator. Maybe Jim Leonard is your defensive coordinator. It's just, that's more speculation, and stuff like that. But
so Vance Joseph potentially taking a head coaching spot or leaving. You think Jim Leonard? Like, I'm not saying. I haven't been all that impressed with Jim Leonard and his.
Well, that's one man's opinion.
Coverage. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I thought for sure he was going to leave Denver and go be the defensive coordinator in Nebraska.
Well, no, I didn't believe that for a second. But I thought it was more that he was going to end up being the head coach at Wisconsin than anything. I personally think that he's already got a defensive coordinator trajectory anyway. He's a brilliant mind. And I actually think he would probably thrive a little bit more of a responsibility than what he has right now. He's a brilliant mind. As far as just because I do feel like it's kind of very limited in terms of players that are under contract. In terms of the ones that are free agents and are going to be hitting the market, that I wouldn't want to bring back, Sternad is one. Barton is a very interesting case. He's a very interesting case because he has those interceptions, but he's another one of those linebackers that gets caught a little bit at times, where he's allowing some huge gains, and actually, I take it back. This one's going to kind of hit like a bit of a ton of bricks. It's not a hot take, but I would not be upset with it, and that is a completely new linebacker room next year. That means exactly what I think it means. We
Singleton out too?
Singleton out also. Sounds excessive.
Okay, but does that include Drew Sanders?
No, I meant like a starting unit, like actually like a starting.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like all linebackers gone.
No,
like inside.
Yeah, I'm just saying like a completely new starting unit.
Okay, I could see that, and I do like Rodney saying Drake Greenlaw and Zach Bond. I like Zach Bond.
I wanted him last year.
Okay, so we go from the super chat question back to the draft a little bit about what we were talking about. I do think that Denver still needs to concentrate on wide receiver and tight end, but which one do they go first? Because there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft class. Like, I love Nick Nash, and that Landon was talking to me about Nick Nash. I fell in love with him. I love Nick Nash. But do they go wide receiver in the first? Do they go tight end? Do they go, if Gentie's there, do they take him at running back? Do they go defense? Like, there's a lot of options, but a lot less than what we needed last year.
Glenn, what would you say?
Well, like when Ryan Edwards was on, I mean, he just loves Tyler Warren from Penn State. And that would be a very smart pick in the first round because it's such a glaring need for us. And the fact that this offense, where it could be with a guy with those capabilities, and then Ryan referenced taking Tez Johnson, maybe even in the second round, that if he goes, the draft would be good for me if we started 1 and 2. Tez Johnson is Bo Nix's brother. I mean, so that would be yet another, connection that, I mean, Tez could end up forcing Troy Franklin out, but I think I'm in favor of, depending on where we're, for positioning, I'm in favor of taking that tight end first.
Yeah,
How's that work? Was that a good one?
I think it worked. We'll see.
I heard the echo, so it had to be pretty good.
But so I think for me, I think that the way it's setting up is it's actually I feel like it's setting up quite favorably for the Broncos, no matter where they slide or where they sit, because it seems like it's trending in the direction where and it's subject to change because of trades in the draft. But the way it's sitting right now is that the Broncos are going to end up with a pick higher than the Chargers. So if you ask me based on possible fit for the Chargers, but also fit for the Broncos, that I don't want ever going and, playing for the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, that would be Tyler Warren. I am not letting Tyler Warren see that Chargers uniform and that Chargers powder blue. I think my prediction still to this day right now is Tyler Warren and Emeka Egbuka. Those are the two guys that I'm looking at right now for the Denver Broncos. By happenstance, with the way that things pick, I think I actually think that you might see some Luther Burden. I wouldn't be upset with it. I think there's also a lot of interesting situations and scenarios where I wouldn't even be the least bit, upset with necessarily. Like in my mind, I'm actually, versus my heart, I'm not actually upset with the idea to trade up for Ashton Genty, because I think that, one of the things we've always battled on this show is how important the running back, is in terms of this, in terms of this team. Is it more important the running game, or is it more important with the tight end? Well, I think we've seen at times and more often, you've actually seen that the running back might actually end up being a little bit more of a more valuable position, than that. So Ashton Genty with this team, that would be amazing. They could even sit tight and take Caleb Johnson with their first round draft pick. So I wouldn't even be the least bit upset with that either. There's just a lot of ways that they can go.
A Mecca Abuka.
Cam, I give you amazing credit in keeping your composure when the whole Bill shenanigans are happening. right before your very eyes.
I loaded it in there for a reason, just so we could stare at it.
And I mean, the edit is incredible. It's so lifelike.
Hey, look at the flowing hair. The ears even match up.
Look at the joy.
Right?
Joy
I don't know where that went.
I just had no idea that that Bill had hair.
Hampton, UNC running back.
Another good back.
UNC, by the way, Bill Belichick. Have fun with that.
By the way, that I will say, obviously I know that we had Javonte Williams, and he's from North Carolina, but Mac Brown does have a history of turning out rather successful, really good running backs. So
Bill became a Chargers fan when he headed west on the Oregon Trail. Bill's the main character in the old computer game.
Well, what is the disease they got? I'm drawing a total brain fart here.
Dysentery?
Dysentery,
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, man.
So the fact is, there's a lot of ways that they can go. If you were to ask for me to basically make a prediction right now, I say that it's going to end up being a Mecca Ibuka or Tyler Warren.
I do like Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the season, we had 3 running backs. Everyone said we're going to have a 3-headed monster, and that was not it. No, but I loved the McLaughlin Estime duo that we saw against Cincinnati.
And Watson,
I hate that we're not giving to it more, right? Like, again, I think if we have 2-headed monster, each one should have a minimum of 15 carries.
Can I phrase something, or can I ask you guys a question? Because we're on the running back question. Hypothetically, let's just say the Broncos punt on running back necessarily. How would you feel if they rolled out with, because what I keep thinking about is it's a completely different position, but the one time where we actually wanted the Broncos to take a tackle, right, was last class, and they didn't. Right, it was a very deep tackle class, and they chose not to. And obviously, Garrett Bowles was our starting tackle, and gave him an extension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. This is a very deep running back class. So, how would you guys feel if they punted on running back, gave Estime the running back 1 touches, and they were rolling with Estime, Watson, and McLaughlin?
Is that who they would stick with, though?
I'm sure they would probably add someone as a UDFA or whatever. But
you got Najee Harris is going to be available unless they re-sign him. AJ Dillon, Alexander
AJ
Madison.
Dillon.
Yeah, AJ Dillon.
Oh man, I think Cam's scenario is much better than anything we've just posed.
J.K. Dobbins. I mean,
Cam, did you see Ken Booker's answer when you said, "Can I ask a question?"
Yeah, as long as it's under 10 minutes.
As long as it's under 10 minutes.
Around the horn.
Get a tackle. To be honest, I don't think Denver touches the offensive line this offseason.
I don't think so.
Maybe like backups. I think the starters stay.
Think the backups are even solid.
Maybe McGlinchey and Palchevsky. That might be a thing. But other than that, I think the offensive line stays the way it is.
So
Mike McGlinchey actually restructured his contract in the offseason, so he's not going anywhere.
So Mike's actually going to laugh at me at this. You're saying offensive line?
Yeah.
I actually would not be surprised if we see a new center.
Not Forsyth.
But I'm just saying, like, I think that it's just he's fine. Like, Wattenberg is serviceable. Forsyth is serviceable. The unfortunate thing there is they're really good in one area. Forsyth is a run blocker. Wattenberg is a really good pass blocker. You mold them together, you have a really elite center, but that's just not going to happen. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they actually brought in an upgrade at center. Like, I would not be surprised, and I would not be upset with it.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to go over. I don't
It's
think
just
so.
score predictions, and then we can probably call it a night. Ball's about to drop.
Unless you want to talk about the Raiders, but I really don't want to.
Why would you want to?
Well, just draft stuff, but that's fine. Score predictions for the final game of the season between the Broncos and the Chiefs. Not it.
Not it.
I'll go 27-17 Broncos. I think that I think that they are going to step it up, and they really want this win. Club dub should be hopping in the bowels of Mile High Stadium after this one. 27-17.
I know it's early for everyone, but a happy new yes, sir, Glenn, Mike, and Cam. Great things for MHRT in 2025. Learn how to spell.
Even when the guy's doing a nice Happy New Year, Bill. Thank you for that.
I just wanted to pull it up for the yes, sir. That was it.
I'm more perplexed at the idea that he can't spell year.
Right? I'm more perplexed that we don't have this up more.
So I think the Broncos win, and I should preface this in the sense that I had originally at the start of the season had these last 3 games as a loss. But I will say, and obviously things changed in the course of the season. I am far more comfortable and confident going into this Chiefs game than I was the Bengals game. So I do think that they actually come away with the win. They actually get into the playoffs. If it does happen, it might be a bit late. But I still plan on doing, this is maybe a teaser, I still plan on doing that special clinching podcast episode. Like if they win, if the Broncos win, we will do a very special episode where it's just nothing but vibes. Think of it like Club Dub on MHRT Network for fans.
And Cam will be drinking.
Maybe not. Maybe. I can't guarantee anything. I don't want to be Charles Barkley. But nonetheless, I think they get the dub, and I will say 23-13. We do get a much better performance.
Whether the Chiefs start all their starters or not, I still think it's going to be a Chiefs normal type game, right? Like every game they've played has basically been a one-score game. It's been a close game. And I think with the drop-off that our defense has had over the last few weeks, I think that's going to continue. I think this is also going to be a close game. So I'm going to say 23-21 Broncos.
Yeah.
Also, why is your spell check changing year to yes, sir? Doesn't make any sense.
Yes, sir.
Don't forget to thumbs up, everybody. Thanks, KB82. Appreciate
thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're the best.
Thanks for joining us on this just goes to show how New Year's Eve has changed. People are joining us instead of going out.
Right? Yeah, we need to make sure we end this show before Glenn's balls drop because he was already talking about it. But we do want to thank everybody for joining us on the show. Oh, my mom's calling. For joining us on the show. It is New Year's Eve. Things are happening. Parties are starting. People are getting arrested for being drunk. All kinds of fun stuff. And you chose to join us. What is wrong with all of you? But we do appreciate every single one of you being here and for giving us the fantastic 2024. It's been a great year. We finally have a winning team. We have hope. It's great. But yeah, make sure you check out all the other shows on the network. We got the 5280. Obviously, today we have shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the neighborhood on game days. Special shout out to Cameron Parker, hosting mainly Broncos. Normally happens on Wednesday evenings, but then there's also the rare occasion. Well, I guess not so rare, but the other occasions that Cam just jumps on the random podcasts and talks football there as well.
What's wrong with that?
And then even though we're missing the birthday boy, Gage Madrid, who just turned 47 years old today. Congrats, Gage. Congrats.
Happy 14th birthday, Gage. We're really
47,
happy.
but he looks 8. It's great. I need to know what
Gage, I will say, he sent us a pretty cool screenshot the other day with his Broncos Syndicate channel. He had hit 5,280 subscribers at that particular moment. He got a picture of that, which is great.
His channel
yeah, good for him.
Also, we would be remiss if we didn't say thank you to Mike Carmelini for ranking us as number 10th on the podcast in terms of all the rankings. So thank you, Mike.
I'm not thanking until we're at least 5.
By the way, I think it also goes to show just how huge of a network this is. He ranked the network, and it goes to show you how incredible this network is. We have so many different podcasts, right? So many different podcasts, possibly so many new podcasts, depending on what's going to transpire with 2025. So it's going to be another tremendous year of growth. And I probably speak for everybody that I'm just so pleased to be a part of it.
We have 9 podcasts, a pregame and a postgame show, and a game day show. So we got 12 shows.
So much so that you could literally rep your favorite podcast if you go to our store link. You could get.
I'm just gonna let you do the promos from now on because you got it.
Cam, if you want to give a shout out to KB, was wondering if you'd do a shout out if you don't mind.
Want to say hi to Drew Peacock. Right? Yeah, Peacock. Not exactly like the streaming service, but
no copyright.
We want to get copyrighted, but no,
you're hired, KB. You're hired.
It's absolutely.
I think what we're gonna do is have Bill do a gamer podcast with him playing Madden 2011. I think that's what he plays. Glenn, you should do it with NFL Blitz.
It'd be fun.
We're just streaming us at the arcade games,
You literally sit Bill in a room, have him play Madden, and it's like The Neighborhood. You stream him, but you just show his reaction and nothing but his reaction as he's trying to learn all these little buttons to push. Like that would actually make for a really good show.
There we go. There we go. Make sure you check out all the shows on the network. Also, our partner network, the Orange and Blue Network, check them out as well. And just go over and spend a millisecond on hitting the like and subscribe button on the videos and on the network. We would greatly appreciate it.
Depending on how fat your fingers are, it might take longer.
Okay, fine.
But thank you, everybody. We appreciate all the participation, the comments, and even the super chats tonight, guys.
Oh, especially the super chats. None of you are as important in the super chats. I'm just kidding. But David and Fernando, thanks so much for the super chats. We appreciate it. Everybody else that joined us in the show, it would not be a fun show without you guys being here, so we appreciate it. And a special shout out to Zoe so that I get it more energized than Emma's. Zoe, it was great having you on the show.
Complaining. She's sitting over here complaining.
Okay, but Emma, my daughter's name is Emma, so there's the better connection there. Because the only connection I have to the name Zoe is my little dog. So, and I don't like that dog. I like Emma.
You don't like the dog?
No, I hate that dog. That dog is stupid. It's old and needs to leave.
I'm notifying PETA.
Go ahead. I'm very nice to that dog, but it doesn't mean I don't contain an inner rage against that dog.
He doesn't like it. He's not eating it, Cam.
Unbridled hatred for the dog. It's just it's one of those ones where you walk out of the room in the morning, there's a pile of crap sitting on the floor, and you don't see it until you step in it.
Cam, he's eating the dogs. He's eating the cats.
Yeah, I'm eating the cats. That's what I'm doing. All right, this has gone way off the rails. Way off. All right.
Anyway, happy New Year, everybody.
I love every single person that joined us in the chat. Everybody have a happy New Year. Be safe, be smart, but enjoy yourselves. We love the Broncos. We love Broncos country. We will see you all later. Peace out.
Fast lane when I pass in the street. Bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame mouth.